Welcome to another episode of Tech Broadcast. And in this episode, we're going to discuss about the much awaited feature from Microsoft, which is the SharePoint Advanced Management. A few months back, I think Microsoft came up with this announcement of bringing in SharePoint Advanced Management, which most of the administrators in the organizations were looking forward. And the good thing about this is like it comes free for any organization which holds Copilot licenses. What are your earlier thoughts on this advanced management features, Gokul, and have you tried them out?
Yeah, Ram. So first, well, to answer your second question first, so I've not tried it because I'm not able to see that feature yet in my tenant, and we have reached out to Microsoft. So to give a intro to all the people who are listening this, in case if you don't see this functionality in the tenant, you can reach out to your support Microsoft support, and I think they will be able to help you get this onboarded. So but if you ask me what this feature is about and how I see it, I really see it as a very good feature. Microsoft has launched it because every organization will struggle to manage SharePoint governance, right? SharePoint and OneDrive governance. It's difficult to identify sites which is inactive, identify oversharing and everything. So organization was always dependent on some third party tool to do all these reporting, but Microsoft has really took the feedback from the customers and they have launched this in-house, right? So within the M365 portal you will be able to identify this tool under the SharePoint admin center, and you will be able to manage it with multiple options, which we will discuss it. And this one good thing is, people whoever has got Copilot, for those customers, this is going to be free of cost. So if you have even a single Microsoft M365 Copilot license, you will be able to use this feature for free. But in case if someone don't have M365 Copilot license and if they really wanted to use it, still they can go ahead and get it as an add-on feature, and there is an additional cost involved in it. As per Microsoft article, it is $3 per user per month, but it again depends on customer to customer. They have to reach out to their sales team, Microsoft sales team, to understand more about costing. So this is what I just think about the tool. And Pri, I just wanted to ask you about data sprawl and how data sprawl is going to be controlled through this tool.
Yes, Gokul. So, with respect to SAM, with SharePoint Advanced Management, the content sprawl, right? So, content sprawl is a issue occurs when the digital content accumulates without any proper management. So, in other words, I can say like when there is a uncontrolled growth of any SharePoint sites or document libraries, so which is not managed and which is abundant, so there's no proper ownership and everything. So what happens is that in a long run, this will result in a disorganized and inefficient data. And also, as an administrator, it would be very difficult to manage because of the huge amount of data, and it will cost the storage expenses as well, right? And there is a vulnerability of sensitive information getting leaked because you're not able to manage it, right? So sensitive information getting leaked, or there might be compliance issue. So in SharePoint Advanced Management, the major goal is to prevent this, control it, and also to maintain the sprawl, like eradicate the unnecessary sites and everything. So there are certain set of policies which can be implemented in SAM. So what do you think of this, Ram? Do you have any thoughts on the policies to control sprawl?
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, right? I think managing the basics is crucial for like building an very strong foundation. So in this case, like to be really honest, many organizations have faced this issue of massive SharePoint load, and then there is no proper ownership, right? And that's where I think Microsoft have come up with the site ownership policy. I think the primary purpose is to ensure that each site has a proper ownership defined, and that way it is responsibly managed. And then that's where I think Priya highlighted about the permissions, where there is a massive gap in terms of properly not assigning permissions on the sites, which actually leads to Copilot having access to it, and leads to issues related to security. And that's where I think you can scope policies based on site templates, and you can based on the sensitivity labels, and even on retention policies. And I think Microsoft has given this option to customize the ownership criteria too. I think the minimum requirement and recommended one is like at least two owners or admins should be there for each of these sites. And you can also notify the owners and the admin, saying that okay, if your site doesn't meet the criteria, then you can even take an action. For example, you can make it as a read only site, so that way like the members of the site can go ahead and contact the administrator saying okay, this has come as read only, like what is the action that I should be taking. So there's like a very good process. It just doesn't give you a report, but it's like an overall automated process that you can configure, so that once it's completed, right, it gives you a neat confidence to the leadership team as well as to the administrator, saying that okay, we have a proper process in place for a strong foundation. And in terms of the data governance, right, Gokul, is there anything that excites you with this SharePoint Advanced Management?
Yeah, so in terms of data governance, so life cycle management is one of the thing that we can think of, right? So every organization will be using SharePoint and OneDrive for collaboration, and there will be a lot of data that will be hosted in SharePoint and OneDrive, but it will not be managed properly. So this will lead to over consuming the allocated SharePoint storage, and people will end up in purchasing additional storage, right? With this data lifecycle management, we will be able to identify the gap, and we will be able to fix it. And it can be done by configuring a couple of policies. One you already mentioned, site owner policy, where we can go ahead and confirm how many owners should be part of a site, right, as you already mentioned. And I find it really helpful, because when I was in support, when I used to take support tickets, right, I've seen cases where people will be rising ticket on the site owner has left the organization, and they need to add someone as a site owner. But when we have certain policies in place, it enforces the site to have minimum of two site admins in place. And this will help us to even reduce the tickets coming to the support teams, right? Because this will enforce people to have two owners in place. So one owner lifts the organization, still the other owner can add one more owner for the site to function. And the other one is identifying the inactive sites. So inactive sites is always a challenge. So we have so much of data spread across SharePoint, but there will be sites which is inactive for a very long period of time, and as an admin we won't be able to take action on archiving those data, right? So with the help of these policies, we will be able to identify which site is inactive for a couple of weeks or couple of days. We can define the timeline, and we can also identify we can also even notify the site owner, saying that this site is untouched for so and so period of time, and we can ask them to do make some action on it. In case if there is no response after certain notification, we can, as you mentioned, we will be able to put that site either in a read only mode, or we can even archive the site. When I say archive the site, we're not going to delete the site, we are just going to put it under the Microsoft 365 archive, right? So for that, user has to configure Microsoft 365 archive billing. And once that is done, through this policies, we will be able to move the inactive sites to the archive storage automatically, which will in turn help us to reduce the additional storage in case if we have purchased with Microsoft. So this is one. And one more thing what I can see is a policy which I related closely with the security measures. uh, Downloading some data, right? So for example, if there is a team who is working on very highly confidential data, for example finance team, and if the data are hosted in SharePoint and OneDrive, as an admin, if we decide we have to protect the data, that user should not download that data in their local machine, then we can apply this download policy, so that people can work only on an online mode. They will not be able to download a offline copy of it in their local machines. So I think this policy is also something very important in terms of security, and it will also help us improve the governance. So we talked about multiple policies, but SAM also contains a lot of reporting functionalities, right? So Priya, could you please help us understand the couple of reporting options that is available under SAM?
Yes, that's right. So in SAM, we have a lot of reports. So the first one I would like to talk about is the data access governance report. So what it does is it identifies the potentially overshared data or the sensitive data. Okay, so that might need an assessment by the administrator. So if the data is overshared, it needs to be identified, right? So then also external sharing enabled. So if there is any sensitive content, right? So any kind of sensitive content being shared, so all these can be exported via this report. And also this has the list of sharing links. So if a user created any sharing link and it has been shared, this report helps in identifying that. So we spoke about sprawling, right? So in order to prevent the sprawling and oversharing of SharePoint site, this kind of report is very much useful. And the next report is the App Insight report. So App Insight report is something like, as an administrator, I can gain access on, if it is like any non-Microsoft applications are registered within the admin center, and do they have access to that specific SharePoint content, right? So again, this App Insight report is still in preview. We can expect it in the coming months, but what it basically does is that any kind of third party application, like it can be a CRM or a backup or anything, right? So it monitors a certain set of events, like the files accessed or the files downloaded, or the if a file is being modified or uploaded. So all these things are part of that report. And the next report would be the report that actually tracks the changes that has been done on the SharePoint site. So that is the site change history report. So it actually, if there is any changes that has been done on the SharePoint sites for the past 180 days, that is being tracked by this. So for example, let's say I go ahead and modify a site name or a URL name or anything. It can be anything, right? So if there is any external sharing has been modified. So all these things are part of the site change history reports. And the last one is the recent site action. So this particularly tracks if there is any changes in the recent site, that is within the 30 days. Okay, so within the 30 days, again, as I said, it will do a snapshot, kind of like it will tell you all the activities that has been performed by the on that specific site, so that as an administrator I can make sure if any unauthorized or unintended modifications have been made on that site, right? So these reports gives us for the administrator, it gives us a lot of access control, so that we can prevent oversharing and also any anonymous access, right? So including to this, I want to know more about the conditional access policy, right? So Ram, what are your thoughts on this? How conditional access policy works with SAM?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things which Microsoft have done here. So one is removing certain things which can be earlier accomplished only through conditional access policy. For example, which Gokul said, where you can block downloading of data from a SharePoint site or a OneDrive site. Earlier, that can be accomplished only through conditional access policy, but now that has been moved into SharePoint Advanced Management. The other thing which they've added here is, right, like the authentication context can be directly applied to the site. So what exactly is that, right? Like, for example, you can set up some authentication context in Microsoft Entra ID, which is the Azure, then create a conditional access policy on top of it that targets its context. So the policy can be something like including conditions like having an MFA to be met, or restricting access to a certain devices, or blocking access from a specific locations. For example, it could be something like a very highly sensitive SharePoint site, where you can say, okay, the user should actually meet an MFA, and then should come up from a specific device or a location, only then they should be allowed to get into that particular site. So which is like a very great feature to have, right? So which enhances your security and ensures that only like respective people are can come into that particular site. And similarly, they've also included the labeled sites now, so you can create a conditional access policy which has a certain sensitivity label, which includes that. So that scoping is also possible now.
Perfect. So, Ram, you mentioned about conditional access policy. I just wanted to ask, is there any controls in place to restrict Copilot searching on specific sites, right? Because I think that was always a challenge. So initially, when organization decided to roll out Copilot, Copilot going and reading a content which a user not supposed to have access to, right? That was always been a problem. So, is there any new controls that is in place within SAM which will help us to fix this problem?
Indeed, I think one classic example you shared is that people having access to something which they shouldn't be having, right? Say for example, a payroll site, if that has access to the entire tenant, like you can think about the after effects of that, right? And similarly, we've been talking about this in our previous podcast as well, like how people can secure their content, and because that's the base for Copilot to operate properly. So one of the key use case of I think the SAMs is the restricted content discovery that they've come up with. This is actually a good feature where you can prevent accidental discovery of highly risk sites. So, but again, I would say this is like a double-edged sword, right? And needs to be used carefully, because adding more sites into this is kind of like over restricting your, I mean, access to Copilot, which means the discovery of that particular site. It could be even within the search functionality or within the SharePoint or for Copilot, you are actually restricting it, right? So you have to use it properly to ensure only the highly risked profile sites goes into this one, and not you no I mean, once you have this feature, right, you get into a mode like you keep adding the sites into that. So I don't want to have Copilot access to this one. So this is something which you have to use little bit cautious, is what I would say.
Yeah, you rightly mentioned, Ram, and I also recommend organizations not to completely rely on this control, right? Rather than they have to have some strong governance in place. If it is a highly confidential site, ensure that it is a private site rather than a public site, and just ensure who have to really have access to those sites. Because as you rightly mentioned, if you restrict the site, it not just restrict the site from Copilot searching it. Even a normal search fails, right? So user
Absolutely.
cannot. Yeah. So I think Sam has got so much of functions within it, and I think we were able to address all the reporting functions and all the policies that is included in it. So Priya, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, yes, Gokul. As you said rightly, it is an advanced management tool, right? So still, it is like people might get it in the few months, but it is mainly to manage all these contents for all and maintain the compliance and security. So I'm actually excited about it, and let's see how it goes in the upcoming months. And if we have any upcoming updates, we will cover it in our podcast. And thank you so much, Ram and Gokul. It was a really engaging and informative podcast. Hope the viewers also will enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much.